Hey everyone, before we get into this next episode, I just wanted to say on behalf of the Archives of Falconry, if you've become a member by now, thank you very much, and if not, I strongly encourage you to do so. I know I did, and I've really enjoyed some of my membership benefits. Membership really helps support the world's leading falconry heritage organization, and if you want to find out more information about membership, you can under the support tab at falconry.org. Some of the benefits of membership include discounted or free rendezvous tickets, discounts at their online store, updates on book auctions, sneak peeks at new exhibits, cool swag, and much, much more. So if you haven't become a member yet, please consider doing so, and you can find out more info at falconry.org. And now, on to this next episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast.
We haven't seen much all day.
Nobody was catching rabbits.
No, and we'd seen like jacks off in the distance, but they're in the next county by the time you see them, right? They're gone. And so we kind of as a last-ditch attempt, think there's something in the bushes in front of us, set rodeo up on one of those tiny live oak trees over there. And I scare up a black-tailed jackrabbit. And I mean, it's almost like in slow motion. I can see it. This jack comes running right towards rodeo. She kind of swoops around, and Danny Pickens has a fantastic series of photos that he caught right at the peak of the action because he was right there with his camera. Everything was perfect. She reaches onto the back of the jackrabbit, and it's like a rodeo. She rides it for a second and then reaches up with one foot, and you can see she reaches up, grabs it in the back of the head, and pulls it to the ground.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast, and this episode is another one of the ones that was recorded in East Texas while I was with Randy Watson, Gary Brewer, and that whole gang out there. And this episode is another kind of unique one because it features another father-daughter duo in falconry, being Dennis and Alyssa Hurley, and got a chance to sit down with them and discuss kind of how they both got into falconry at the same time and kind of hear their stories some while I was out there. So I hope you all enjoy it. So without saying much more, we're just going to jump into this episode with Dennis and Alyssa Hurley, and you can hear their story. So here we go. Yeah, coffee with honey, it helps sometimes. I've never been a big coffee person, but for the most part, I will say there are occasional times where, I do like the occasional foofy, caramel macchiato type of thing or whatever.
Extraordinary, the 800 calorie one. Right?
Yeah. The ones that, although Randy went and got some coffee from this place up the road here yesterday that has this really good, whenever people start talking about it's this and infused with no fat oat milk and stuff like that's kind of whenever I start to typically draw the line. But what he brought yesterday was actually pretty good, and I can't complain.
Good.
But yeah, no, this place in this area is pretty cool. Have you guys been here for a long time, or?
We've been in. I moved to the Tyler area in 2000. Alyssa was born and raised here, of course, and so we've done a lot of the lake stuff. Had a boat for a while, so I've been on Lake Palestine a number of times. Haven't been to this specific area, but a lot of the areas, there's probably half a dozen or more places like this on the lake.
And then falconry took over.
Yeah, then falconry took over.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's cool hearing how people land in certain areas. And, as far as this area does seem kind of unique in a lot of ways as far as just the layout and, just the overall aesthetics of it all. I don't know. It kind of reminds me a little bit of parts of the Midwest, like Kentucky Lake a little bit, except, minus the swamp and the potential for alligators.
Yeah.
But
definitely have those around here. Yeah, we came to Tyler in 2000. My wife and I, she had looked for residency, graduated medical school, and residency ended up at the residency program here in Tyler, and just loved the small town aspect of it. You could be across town in 20 minutes, and lots of wildlife and outdoor stuff, and just fell in love with the place. And of course, my daughter and my son born here, and we've lived here ever since. Love the community, love the East Texas feel, and it's not in the big metropolitan areas that are just overwhelmed. And we like that small town feel of it. Still a big town. It's over 100,000, draws about 250,000 on a weekly basis, a daily basis, people coming into town. But overall, just a great place to live and to do life and to have kids.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds kind of similar to where I live. I live in southern Indiana in Evansville, and I mean, kind of like some of those types of cities. They're not the biggest and they're not the smallest. They're somewhere in between. I think Evansville still ranks somewhere in the top, I don't know, like 5 or 6 as far as size of cities in Indiana or something. But whenever I was driving through last night, whenever I was driving through Tyler, it kind of reminded me a little bit of it, so but yeah, and as far as everything else goes, though, I mean, so if you don't mind me, how old are you now, Alyssa?
21.
Do you see yourself kind of living here all the time, or you want to kind of spread your wings a little bit eventually?
I'm not sure. I think that at least for the time being, I'm good to go anywhere. I've seen a lot of opportunities in terms of internships and things up in like Alaska or Colorado, for example, and those are areas I would love to go intern at. Not quite sure what I'll do after that. I think I'm kind of just looking for something to fill my time, at least until I eventually, hopefully, settle down. So, yeah.
Intern for what exactly, or intern doing what?
Wildlife related or zoology related. I know that the summer before last, I interned at the Abilene Zoo Bird Rehabilitation Center, and that was fascinating. I got to do a lot of bird training as well. We had a raven come through that was non-releasable, and so I helped. I spearheaded his training and got him ready for zoos and zoo life in terms of like just basic maintenance procedures, things like that, just to decrease stress on everybody. And that really opened my eyes to zoo work in general. So I would love to intern at a rehabilitation center or a zoo. And some of the rehabilitation centers, like the Sitka Alaska Raptor Center, have really fantastic raptor rehabilitation programs and also some really good education programs. And I enjoyed the training and education programs a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe it or not, there was a brief amount of time where I thought I was going to end up in Alaska, maybe for a work agreement. As I was telling you, I'm a respiratory therapist, so I do a lot of the travel contract stuff. And I'm sure you've probably heard me mention it before, since you guys listen to the podcast and stuff. But believe it or not, Alaska, at least for my profession, is one of the few states that doesn't require licensure. So any time that I work in a new state, I have to get a state license for it. It's the biggest racket ever.
It is, yeah.
But I was looking into Alaska briefly just because I thought it'd be really neat and stuff, and I wasn't going to have to shell out money for another state license. But that's a place that I would love to visit eventually. There's just the sad thing about it is there's no convenient way to get there unless you fly, and So I mean, are you in a position now where you're willing to basically to just drop everything and I mean, I'm assuming you don't really have any ties to anything yet as far as other than just your immediate family?
Yeah, just immediate family. I mean, it would be difficult to move up there because I do have a cat, and cats are difficult to move places. Thankfully, he enjoys car rides. But I feel like I don't know if Alaska or any place really up north would be the place I'd want to spend the rest of my life. I know that Alaska comes with its own set of challenges, and I was born and raised in Texas, so snow's not exactly something I know. So that would be difficult, but I feel like at least for a short amount of time, it would be something that would be really fun to do, and I feel like I would be okay with kind of just dropping everything and going for a little bit.
Do it now while you can.
Yep.
And it's a lot harder later on in life.
Yep.
When your biggest attachment's your cat, it's pretty easy to go ahead and pick up and go do stuff. Yeah.
Well, and let's be real too. I mean, nobody else really likes cats for the most part. You can just go ahead and ditch them.
I see how it is.
He is really half dog, half cat.
He does tricks. I've trained him
to a weird number thing, and
I can ask him questions and he'll answer me. I'll ask him, "Hey, are you hungry?" And then he'll actually lead me to his food bowl. He knows what I mean.
Yeah.
It's weird.
An animal that gets cued in on food cues. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Yeah.
I know, right?
And a falconer using that to train other animals, right?
Right. Yeah. No, it's it's amazing. I'm just giving you crap.
Yeah.
I personally, I'm not a cat person,
That's fair.
but at any rate, I mean, I think you're one or the other usually. You know, I mean, there's guys that I know that absolutely hate dogs too, and I actually hunt with a couple of them.
Oh.
I keep prepping them for later on in life. You know, I'm like, dude, whenever you're like 65, 70, and you know, like I'm not available, or you know, all of us aren't available through the week after you're retired to come beat for you. Hey, what are you gonna?
That's right.
And you know, I mean, they're crazy enough though. They'll just be out there with a goshawk on the glove, trying to wade through everything just by themselves and stuff. But
Kick up something.
yeah, but no, that's cool. And remind me again, Dennis, what do you do?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm actually retired. 2019, I went ahead and retired from teaching. I had just done adjunct teaching, a lot of that through the local college system. So I was at Tyler Junior College, and I was at UT Tyler for 16 years teaching political science. And I always joked, and it was kind of funny, but there's a lot of truth to it, that because my wife is a physician, I enjoyed teaching. I enjoyed being in the classroom. So I would a lot of real world, real life experience for the students. I'd always tell them, start off with this very interesting lecture at the beginning of the semester of, you know, a third of you need to drop all your classes right now and go figure out what you want to do in life, because you're not going to make it to the end of the semester. And of course, administration doesn't like it when you say things like that.
Sure.
But I would always joke that, you know, I don't need the job. I'm here because I want to be here for the students, and go ahead and don't renew my contract. It's okay.
Yeah.
But in 2019, I went ahead and retired from that. And so I do a lot of volunteer work on staff at our church. And I run head instructor and president of a martial arts organization that is primarily a Japanese style striking martial arts organization, but does ministry. And so most of our dojos, our martial arts schools, are in churches and low cost, reaching out to people, especially in other countries. We're active in Mexico and Philippines, and reaching out to young teen boys who seem to have anger issues, and you get them in and teach them a little bit about self-control and discipline, and hopefully change their life.
Yeah, no, I think that's good to have for a lot of kids, especially. I mean, I've done throughout various points in my life, I've done martial arts and like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and trained MMA and stuff. Yep. I've got a soft skull and a soft brain from a very early childhood injury, so I never like competed professionally, or I mean, I've done a few tournaments and stuff here and there, but it is cool for kids to have outlets and things like that to kind of get that aggression out.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
you know, it seems counterintuitive that, you know, you would want to train kids with anger issues in martial arts. But ironically enough, there's been several guys that I've known that have done that, and it really fixed a lot of their issues, you know, once they had a constructive outlet for it. You know?
Yeah, that's typically one of the biggest concerns I get from people inside churches, where somebody would like to start a new martial arts program in a church, and you get the deacons or, you know, the staff involved like, now, wait a minute, you're teaching these kids to beat each other up and violence, and this is a church. Like, okay, well, let me tell you kind of how this works. And that's exactly what you said, you know, getting these kids that outlet, that structured outlet, and it really can change their life, keep them out of trouble, keep them off the streets, and give them a place where they can go vent that frustration, that or that excitement, and go beat on some bags or whatever the case may be. But so, and the reality is very few people ever are going to make it to professionally. It's kind of like football, you know, the professional MMA guy is a rare person. It really is.
Yeah. And like I said, I've have some friends that have made it to that point, at least amateur, and kind of technically went pro and stuff, but never made it to like the upper.
Yeah, UFC is the big one, and that's so rare for that to happen. And there are plenty of those pro-am organizations, those local regional things around the area, but
and other guys that they've come close and flirted with it and stuff, but anyway, speaking of creative outlets, though, you know, for people to you know, have I don't know, various forms of a time suck for sure. You know, getting back to falconry though, like I mean, I know you guys said that you had kind of a similar, more interesting journey, and I mean, for those listening, you guys now make the second official father-daughter falconry tandem that I've had on here. Of course, the first one's being, Neil and Aaron Deacon from Zimbabwe. But I mean, I guess I'll go ahead and just hand the floor over to you real quick, and you can just kind of describe in you guys' own words kind of how this all developed for you both, I guess.
Sure. So I'll let Alyssa kind of start the story here in a second, but it really started with 7th grade. And in Texas, 12 is the minimum age to become an apprentice, and she was 11 at the time. I've always been an outdoorsman, loved hunting, bow hunting and fishing and rifle hunting, all that outdoor stuff. And she'll tell you about Robert Carter and how seeing him at church. But I always thought it was fascinating, but I knew what kind of a time suck, as you said, it could be. And when I do something, I don't do it halfway. I go in fully. And so I kind of avoided that conversation. But Alyssa, take it.
So I really saw, like he was saying, I saw Robert bringing birds to church a lot, and it was absolutely fascinating to me. I was struggling a little bit in junior high. Junior high is a time I do not wish on many people, if anybody at all. It's very difficult, very hard to find your place. And, I was struggling a little bit, as teenagers, preteens tend to do. And I saw this falconry, and I had seen other pieces of media that had kind of portrayed falconry before, or just birds in general, and I thought it was absolutely fascinating. It was something that I was really interested in, and I came to Dad one day, and I'm sure I remember this completely differently than he does, but I came to him and was like, "Hey, Dad, this is really cool. I want to do this." And he said, "Look it up for me." So I researched it, looked into the minimum age, looked into the requirements, and I came to him with this folder almost of
business
just
proposal
information. Yeah, a business proposal of, okay, listen, I want to do this. And essentially we sat down, had a good conversation, and at the end of it, what I remember is him just going, "Okay, what? That's it? Okay?" Like, it was that, like, "You're okay with me doing this? This is difficult. This is a lot." And he was like, "Yeah, I'll do it with you." It's a good opportunity for us to spend time together. And it also was something that he had found interesting, just never had the time to do. But since I had shown such an interest in it, he decided to at least humor me and go into the studying for it, because even now I don't like studying, but especially 11-year-old me hated studying, right? And so he's like, if you can study for this test and show some initiative in wanting to do this test and study for it and learn all of these things, then yeah, I think you probably have the discipline and the desire to do falconry. And when we studied together, really read that as him studying and then teaching me, as we learned and kind of got everything together and started building the muse and everything, I didn't ever really back down. I continued showing this excitement and this initiative, and I had plenty of opportunities to back out, and I didn't, and that really showed him, and it showed Robert Carter, our sponsor at the time, that I was actually serious about this, and that's what really kind of brought us into falconry and actually really going for it.
So as a parent, you're always looking for those opportunities to do things with your kids, or at least hopefully you should be. And Alyssa always loved the outdoors. Anything to do with animals, just loved it, and still does to this day. And that's what she's working on her degree in wildlife biology. But so 7th grade, just as she said, a very difficult time early on. And I knew I needed to spend more time with her. My son, mostly martial arts and gun hunting with him, but martial arts specifically is kind of where I spend time with him on. So I looked at as an opportunity to do falconry, which I had always found fascinating as well, but also spend some great time with her. And it's easier to propose to your spouse that spending $5,000 or $10,000 or a lot of money on a sport, a hobby, is is a good investment when you got your kids along for the ride.
Yeah.
So because of that, my wife very much supported us, supported the opportunity to get into it together. And so as a professor, studying, not a big deal to me, and, getting notebooks out and research. And I love research to this day. It doesn't matter what the subject is. I'll spend a lot of time on it. And so I researched everything and figured everything out. And of course, the studying materials, and made a lot of great notes. And then I would teach her what I had learned from that to help her understand. And she says she doesn't like to study, but if she's fascinated by it, then she'll spend tons of time on it. So watching videos of people training and reading about it was pretty fascinating for her. So she did well and turned 12, and Robert Carter agreed to sponsor us. And we both took the test the first time and passed it. And that's kind of that big first step, whether you're serious or not. Some people, when they realize just how much studying and work goes into it, and oh wait, there's a 2-year minimum commitment. And of course, with Alyssa, it was 4 years. 12 years old, minimum in Texas is 16 to be a general. So she had 4 years. So she had a little bit longer of an apprenticeship there. And I took the test and did great. And that was kind of the run. And because she was so young, we wanted to take it slower with her. And so if anybody out there is listening right now, and you've got kids and you want your kids to get involved, or maybe somebody is interested in falconry but would like to do it with their kid to start it like we did, I would strongly encourage that if you've got a child under that age of 16, that the parent really needs to go on that adventure with them. There are things that can go wrong. And so Alyssa got a Harris's hawk, named Belle as the first. It was of an older bird, a mature bird, a very experienced bird. And I'll let her tell the story of how we ended up with rodeo after that.
So Belle, like he was saying, she had been with one falconer who actually was going on a mission trip. And to give you an idea of who her previous falconer was, his name is Jeff. And he was a pretty tall guy, huge beard, pretty muscular dude. I mean, the exact opposite of a scrawny, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed 12-year-old girl, right? And I didn't know what I was doing. Harris's hawks are their own ball game. They're very fascinating birds and very intelligent, but that also means there's almost a social hierarchy that comes with them. And I wasn't prepared for it. And then she also kind of looked at me and was like, "You're nothing like my human, my person." But I was working with her, and she just decided she didn't like me. And when a Harris's hawk decides they don't like you, it's very difficult to change their mind.
Yeah, there's not much hope out there.
No.
And she kicked me once in the face, and I didn't know what that meant at the time because I was 12. And so I continued to kind of try and work with her, and there was a lot of just sitting and trying to basically just on the glove man her, get her used to me. And I'm sitting in the garage one evening. My brother's out front playing soccer with some of his friends in the neighborhood. And I'm in the garage with this bird on my glove, and she is just ratcheted down on my glove. Like, my hand's gone numb. It's been like 45 minutes. I've just been sitting there scrolling YouTube, and my hand's gone numb. This was stupid of me, okay? Don't do what I did. Anybody that's listening, please just ask somebody else. You know, like, for example, I should have called my dad and been like, "Hey, can you help me transfer? I need a break." But I decided I knew what I was doing and tried to transfer her off the glove onto another perch and slip my glove off just for a minute to readjust my hand and then put my hand back in the glove. And she ended up handcuffing me. So, again, for the people at home who don't know what that is, she had one foot still on my glove, perching, and then had her other foot, her other set of talons in my hand. And then, you know, at that point, I coughed my brother, and I'll give myself a pat on the back. I didn't start crying till afterwards. I call my brother, and I'm like, "Hey, Caden, you need to get Dad." Dad's at the bottom of the driveway on the phone. Dad turns around, sees what's going on, hangs up, and right as he enters the garage, she sinks that other set of talons into my hand. So now I've got this angry Harris's hawk on my hand. And I mean, obviously, wasn't exactly her fault. She just didn't like me, and I didn't understand that at the time. But she sank both sets of talons into my hand. And we had a little bit of a come to Jesus moment where I sat down with my dad in the bathroom, FaceTiming my mom because she was out of town at the time. And so FaceTiming my mom, deciding if I needed to go to the ER, if I needed stitches, if I needed antibiotics. I had a test the next day.
Doctor family, right?
You just rubbed some Robitussin in it, you'd have been fine.
Yeah.
Well, the issue is that it came right next to the tendon in my middle,
That's what we were worried about.
in the middle of my hand.
Oh.
But I could wiggle my fingers. I had feeling. I had feeling in all of my fingers. I could wiggle them. So I went and took written tests the next day with my hand just like completely.
So for those that are out there listening and say, well, yeah, to get the bird off, you just grab the head and squeeze and they'll let go. It doesn't always work.
No.
So, of course, I went in barehanded and pulled her off. I'm being a guy. More respect. We found out later that she does not like women. She prefers guys. And if you have a beard, that's a plus and does well with that. So it's the first test, right? This is the first real experience. Been a falconer for
not
all
even
of,
2 months.
not even 2 months. And she's had this really terrible, bad experience. Are we going to continue this or not? And that was the first test. And she, troopered through it. And absolutely want to continue it, but not with that bird.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I basically looked at my dad and said, no, I don't.
So Robert Carter had a red tail at the time that was 3, had hunted for 3 seasons. That was rodeo. A lot of people in Texas know all about rodeo. And rodeo, fantastic bird at the time, even only with 3 seasons under her belt. And Alyssa ended up taking rodeo because Robert wanted to get into long winging again. And so he got into long winging again with Danny Pickens and flying long wings in East Texas, which is a whole nother adventure of itself. But we had rodeo, and rodeo was, if there's anything to describe rodeo, is that she is just the most steady bird out there and just fantastic. So Alyssa got to learn about bird handling, learned more about manning. There were some things that we got to do, some things that we got to work with rodeo on to help train, and just a fantastic first bird for those first 2 years. And then, of course, I went off and trapped and got my bird, my apprentice bird, which is a red tail. And then, she can kind of come in and talk about flying and being with rodeo. For those that are listening, we're kind of struggling with this right now because got rodeo out on Thursday, and we started our 13th season a week ago. She's 12, and hunting rodeo, hot, humid day, but I wanted to get out and get a quick hunt in, and flew off like she's done many times before and grabbed a venomous snake, grabbed a copperhead, and got bit. Took a bad bite, got her some help, got her medicines and got her help, but didn't quite recover, didn't quite make from it, and she died Thursday night. So that was 3 days ago.
Well, and as tough as those things are to talk about, though, I am always appreciative of people who are, falconers who are willing to share those kinds of experiences, because anybody that is not currently a falconer and thinking about getting into it, it is important for them to continue to hear different experiences of how, there's a lot of great things involved in this whole thing that we call falconry, but there's a lot of things that suck too.
Absolutely.
I mean, and there's a lot of things that you're going to have to deal with that you would have never thought going into anything like this that you're going to end up having to deal with.
Absolutely.
And, but at any rate, I mean, I do have a quick question for you all, though, because I'm not very familiar with Texas rules and regs. I mean, I know Indiana's fairly well, obviously. But as far as, what kind of birds can you start out with in Texas? I mean, being a younger falconer like that, I mean, do they let you, like, if someone transfers you an older bird, can you start with?
No, you can't. So you do have to trap, train, and hunt for at least 2 years, first 2 years, to promote to general. But Alyssa, being 12, she had 4 years to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we knew we had at least 2 years that she could fly rodeo, and we knew that rodeo was such a fantastic bird. We wanted to keep her around. Not just a fantastic falconry bird and hunting bird, but an incredible ambassador for the sport and for the natural environment. And we've done plenty of talks and discussions with people and shows. And we've taken a lot of people out who are just interested in it and introduced them to falconry. A number of who end up becoming falconers later on would meet us at the meets and go out with us. They would send her out because she was such a steady bird and was very successful at falconry. So, so we knew that she had at least 2 years. So I ended up taking rodeo after she had her. And the reality was, being in junior high, the schedule and school and studying, I ended up flying my bird and rodeo when she couldn't go out. And then when she had available time, then we'd go out together, or we'd fly my bird, then we'd put rodeo up in the woods. And so she would get the time in too, but I was flying 2 birds at the time.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so she ended up, after that, transferring rodeo back, ended up trapping her first bird, which is another little bit of a tragedy story. I'll let her tell the story in a second, but Robert Carter, our sponsor, said, there's thousands of things that can happen in falconry, and only 2 of them are good.
Yeah.
You get your bird back alive and you're successful at whatever you're trying to hunt. And there's thousands of stuff that can go wrong. And he's had some crazy bad experience as well with electrocution and bird decapitations and red tail killing a falcon. And he's lost a number of birds because of that. Sure. So Alyssa got to trap her first bird for the apprenticeship.
So my first bird was trapped behind the Trinity Mother Frances Hospital in Tyler. There was like a stand of probably 20 pine trees, and these red tails decided that constituted a good nesting location in the middle of downtown. And so we had the opportunity to actually scope out the location and get some fantastic photos of the nest before we trapped. These birds were incredibly well adjusted, and we just walked out to the parking lot nearby, put down our trap, and then this bird just came right into the trap. I mean, we barely made it back to the car when this bird hit the trap.
Doesn't usually take very long.
No, but it was...
But these birds were socialized. There were picnic tables. The day before, we literally walked under the tree they were sitting in.
They didn't have a lot of fear of man anymore.
No.
Yeah. So I mean, like, this one bird saw us and then decided, they could still come over here, I guess, but I'm hungry and I want that. And trapped that bird, named him Francis because Trinity Mother Frances, it made sense. And had him for...
About 5 weeks.
Yeah.
5 or 6 weeks. We took our time training. And it was still kind of hot, but so 5 or 6 weeks, and then we were almost ready to go free fly. Yeah,
so we, at the time, fantastic, well-adapted bird. I probably could have, I call it footballing, probably could have picked him up and put him under my arm like you do a football, and he would have let me. Weird bird. I've never seen a bird that well-adjusted, especially a red tail that well-adjusted. And he ended up having a deformity in his crop. That caused,
what the vet said that ended up doing the crops.
A quail bone to get lodged in there and give him sauerkraut, and he passed away.
Like a little pocket or something that was different. And so we got him to the vet, or he died on the way to the vet, and I went ahead and let the vet kind of look at him and figured out what happened.
Yeah.
So there's another. So now she's 14, and she's had loses her first bird, which is not unheard of. That does happen. But another test. Hey, you still wanting to do this? And after a few tears, which is understandable,
I was 14.
We were back at it 2 days later, and typically it's not hard to trap a red tail. You hear people, just go trap it. There's one on every other telephone pole.
You would think.
And we drove 1,600 miles or something like that. It was crazy trying to trap.
From here to Terrell, which is about an hour and 15 minutes.
Buc-ee's and Terrell was our turnaround point. And finally we saw this weird bird flying and flapping over a field, and then he'd move on and fly and just hover. It was the weirdest looking bird. We couldn't tell what it was from the distance, flew over Buc-ee's and ended up landing on a telephone pole. We don't have binoculars on it yet. Like, well, you want to just try to trap it and see what it is? And what happened?
Well, it turns out there was actually a second bird there at the time. So it was probably a sibling act of some sort, or just migration, 2 juvenile birds just getting along while they tried to make it down to South America. And we put the trap down underneath, and I look up and there's that second bird above me. So we see this weird looking bird and this other bird above me as well. And they both look like red tails, but we can't figure out what this second bird is. And the one above us comes down first. catches the attention of the other bird, and they start crabbing on the trap. They start fighting each other for the right to get to it. And they both got caught, and I got to take a good look.
And it was at the moment where they both came down that we realized, being new, we just weren't thinking what we had.
It was a Kreider's red tail. We had a normal, red tail and a Kreider's red tail, and we kind of joked around a little bit. Dad was like, "All right, so you want the normal one, right?" And I smacked him on the shoulder and said, "No, I want to try working with this Kreider's." And some of the more experienced falconers out there know that Kreiders have a reputation for having tiny feet. And so we were very pleased to find that this one actually had normal sized feet,
yeah.
Good sized feet, especially since, he was a male, so he's on the smaller side, and a Kreiders, and he had, decent sized feet, which meant that he wouldn't have been at risk, at a high risk for injuries from squirrels as a bird with smaller feet would. And so, we ended up taking him home, and he ended up working out for 3 whole seasons before I released him.
She kept him, promoted general, flew another season as general, and then before she went off to college, we released him. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds like, that's about as rocky of a start, especially for a young lady. Even a preteen.
Yeah.
But no, that's why I was curious though about the rules and regs though, because I've never really heard of anyone, and I understand, just having, you're going to have that big time period gap there.
Yeah.
Maybe starting off with an older bird. I just didn't realize that Texas would let you start off with any kind of older bird as an apprentice at all, like even if it was like transferred to you or whatever.
Yeah, you can.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
But of course it doesn't count towards the apprenticeship.
Right. Well, and in hindsight, I'm sure by now you've probably figured out that was probably already a certain hill, especially with like a secondhand, Harris and stuff like. So I've gotten a chance to fly 2 of those now. Okay. 2 or 3
hand-me-downs,
second-hand Harrises and stuff.
Yeah,
it's definitely not my favorite thing to do.
It can be different for sure.
Because as you guys were saying, certain species, they don't care. Yeah. Like other species, it doesn't matter as long as you're going out and doing your thing, hunting. Most other, some of the other species, doesn't matter.
A red tail doesn't matter.
And even. Accipiters are quirky anyway.
Yeah.
But as long as you're, hunt, kill, whatever.
They have anxiety.
With accipiters too, a lot of them, as long as they were initially raised right and instilled, the proper behavior stuff, right?
No food begging or
whatever.
aggression. Yeah.
Harrises though, no. They'll
work you over.
the ones that are used to what they're used to, it's like the older they get, the more set in their ways they get, and the more crotchety they are with change.
Yeah.
And so, in hindsight, I'm sure you can look back now and appreciate just how difficult extra difficult you probably made things for yourself with your initial start on your journey. But
well, funny story. I have Belle's sister now.
Yeah.
So I have the sister of the bird that originally hurt me, and she's fantastic.
Yeah, we have 2 Harrises now that we're working with. She has the female. I have a male, and they've flown together for off and on over the last 12 years. And so we do still have Harrises and enjoy flying them. We occasionally do fly on squirrels. I know that's some people out there having a little bit of a pucker factor right now, but we do fly them on squirrels. They do great. Lucy, Alyssa's female, is a big female with good feet, red tail type feet, and does fantastic on them. My male won't catch them, but he'll harass them so she can catch them, which works out great. Mm-hmm. And then we love taking them out to West Texas and flying rabbits and jacks and things like that out there.
Yeah. They can do it for sure. But as we've had, by now, by the time people listen to this, they'll probably have already heard the opinions of
absolutely
of plenty of other people. As far as Harris technically, I think most people will agree, is not always going to be the best, or not pretty much ever always going to be the best tool for squirrels. Especially like bigger fox squirrels and stuff. But but at the same time, it doesn't mean they can't do it, and doesn't mean they can't do it well. And some just learn, because as we can't say it enough, Harris is just so smart.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you basically they learn very well, or they either learn really well or they don't.
Or they don't, and something bad happens.
But I mean, the ones that are really smart about it, they learn really well where to grab. Yeah. And if they don't get that grip, they let go. Yeah.
That's a good example. Gatlin the male, his first season got the hallux bit and broken, the toe bone broken, and got him fixed up and healed up, but that's probably a reason why he doesn't catch them. But he'll harass them, he'll pop them or chase them in the trees to get them moving for the female. And it's a good example too. When you compare to the red tails, I love squirrel hawking. It's just probably one of the funnest things I've done. And I've flown a number of birds, different environments. But when you compare the red tail versus the Harris's, the Harris is much more likely to grab and let go than red tails are. Red tails will typically fight through it. Rodeo is definitely that way. And, another one of my birds, Katana, that I flew was that way as well. Would grab and fight through it and get bit. And by the end of the season, you're all bit up. But the Harris's grab, let go. And then, okay, now I've got that head. Now I'm good. And then they'll bind to it. Yeah.
And something I'm hoping we can get the birds to listen to, if Lucy, my bird, would stop being such a weird swamp hag and actually stop screaming at the dog. She sounds, if you've ever heard like a witch, man, that's what she sounds like when she screams at him. So I call her the swamp hag. If she could stop being angry at the dog, I'm hoping that she can learn to work with the dog. Something that Rodeo had done occasionally is she'd have a big fox squirrel that was fighting her, and she'd like hover over Gizmo, our dog, and just drop it in front of him and have him catch the squirrel for her.
Yeah, we've seen that with Rodeo. She'd be fighting with that big fox squirrel, and she'd pull it out of the tree and then bank toward, and she'd literally drop it to the dog. And then the dog would bite it and kill it, and then I'd get the dog off of it and get the dog under control, which respects the birds very well, throw the fox squirrel out, and then Rodeo come down, bind to it and do her thing, and then I'd transfer her off. And very unique relationship that they had. And
I'm hoping we can at least get something similar to that with the Harris's hawks, so that
that's the plan for this season, is we're going to get them trained and hopefully used to working with the dog. So
yeah, I mean, and I'm sure you all will hear. I mean, I've actually had that conversation with a couple of these other guys and stuff too. You know, it's just like the key. And this isn't just what my personal observation. This is like almost every person that's ever flown Harris's with dogs. Either they like them or they won't.
Hate them.
Oh yeah.
And but like the ones that do come to accept dogs and value them, they just have to see the dog do something positive.
The flushing opportunities.
Yeah, once they understand that dog's going to work for them, then that dog could pretty much like crawl, lick, whatever, all over them. Yeah. That bird's not going to care as long as that bird understands
the relationship.
But until they do, though,
it's pretty rough.
It's not
screaming.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, I can tell you some stories for sure of my own personal experiences with that after we're done here. Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean it's tough, man. Like building that relationship sometimes, though, you almost sometimes have to fabricate it, set it up, make sure that that the understanding's there before you get out in the field, because sometimes if you don't, the other X factors that pop into your hunting environment, sometimes it can make for some bad recipes.
It can. It reinforce the bad behavior that you're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
So very good.
But yeah, no, I mean, well, that's cool though. I mean, it sounds like though that you all have had a nice diverse start to your falconry careers.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting to see. There's a couple of other falconers that I know too that is kind of like yours, but like actually I know some falconers who's like initially the daughters are who got started, and then the dad got started later and things, same kind of thing. Everybody's paths is a little different, but it's cool that you guys, were able to do that. And as I've said many times before, my son occasionally will tease me with interest, but I've given up all hope that he's ever going to, take it seriously at any stretch. Yeah. But
my son will go out with us and beat the bush, but
he doesn't really care. Yeah. Well, I mean, you've stuck with it now all this time. I mean, you said you're
almost 10 years.
You said you're 21 now.
Mm-hmm. She just promoted to master.
Yeah. So I mean,
that was another hoop.
Yeah.
You have to be 21 to promote to master in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to wait for all of my falconry promotions.
And not that it matters, but it's just the bragging rights of saying 21. You're promote to master kind of thing. But
Yeah.
not that it matters that, for what we're doing.
I mean, for most places, I think, especially when it comes to dirt hawking anyway, there's very few species that you're going to be able to practically fly as a general it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter, but Alyssa does have maybe. She's always said she would love to fly a golden eagle eventually.
East Texas is not the place to fly a golden eagle. There's too many trees.
Well,
most places east of the Mississippi, period, are not very good places.
But there's that.
I'm not saying it can't be done, but
only that cat attachment so she can pick up and go. And
I thought you were suggesting I put my cat in front of a golden eagle for a second.
No.
I am.
I am not doing that to my dear Winston. That's not happening.
Oh man. Yeah,
but it would be interesting to do a golden eagle. I've heard all the horror stories of people getting hurt by their eagles, and I think that getting that footing out of the way really early on kind of made me realize that it's both as bad and not as bad as people make it out to be at the same time.
Depends on who you talk to.
Well, but it's both. Yeah. It's as bad in terms of my bird just footed me. That's offensive. I didn't like that. But also, I'm able to put aside that this is just normal bird behavior and kind of put aside that offensive factor that comes with your bird deciding they don't like you today and trying to foot you. And being able to kind of mind over matter some of the other footings that I've had later on helps a lot. And so I'm hoping I don't get completely mauled by an eagle if I decide to work with it.
If you end up going that way.
But
and Lauren McGowan, you've done on the podcast, has talked about the training behaviors and kind of how to work through those. She's got some very neat and practical experience on that. And
well, I mean, it's especially a species like that, you've really got to think way ahead.
Yes.
And have a plan.
That's what she says. Yeah, have a plan.
I mean, something like that would seem like it would be common sense, but for a lot of people, it's not always. And, the whole key to falconry in general is I know you all have come to the conclusion of, and just, you really have to have a plan. You have to map out your path to success. Yeah. And if you don't, you're just going to struggle.
Frustrate yourself.
And with something as big and as potentially dangerous, as a golden eagle.
Absolutely.
That's something that you shouldn't take lightly.
No.
Shouldn't take it for granted.
No, it's not a kestrel, it's not.
Or even a red tail or a Harris's hawk for that matter.
Yeah. And I mean, for that matter too, it's not right now with the way the status of the way things work for us. Mm-hmm. It's not like it's super easy to get one right now either.
It's so limited.
And so if you're going to jump through all those hoops, you need to set yourself up for as much success ahead of time.
And that's why part of the plan, if this is all hypotheticals, if I were to ever decide to pursue golden eagles, I would seriously sit down with golden eagle falconers and be like, can I just watch for a season? Can I observe? I might even at that point have had experience in zoos working with large birds. That's the dream, hopefully, is to work in a zoo with the whole assortment of birds and being able to handle large animals and understand, and then sitting down with eagle falconers and getting myself kind of surrounded with those kinds of people. And I mean, like, I can talk about how I'm not afraid or whatever and this or that or the other. And I mean, yeah, it's useful to understand and, be at peace with the fact that it is dangerous, but also to set myself up for success and surround myself with people who have that experience so that I can avoid as many issues as possible.
Well, and I know, speaking from my own personal experience, like, and you guys can speak on this for what your experience has been too, but anytime I've ever been tempted to try something a little bit out of the norm or whatever, it's not like I don't think I can make certain things work now with the knowledge that I have now or this, that, or the other. But like, anytime I've ever tried to do anything or been tempted to do something that's a little bit out of the norm without trying to get as much personal observation with it first, it's never really worked out that well for me. And to me, it's not just a golden eagle. Like for really any species that you really plan to fly, I mean the way you're going to have most early success, at least, is if you do see somebody or have an immediate resource at your disposal that can help you. You can only do so much over the phone or over the interwebs.
It's difficult. On the job training is king of all. I got the opportunity for a number of years when Robert Carter and Danny Pickens were flying Falcons in East Texas hunting ducks. To travel with them a couple of days a week, I'd always go out with them in the morning and then come back and do red tail stuff. And it's interesting because that's falconering, duck hawking with peregrines in East Texas. That's a difficult thing to do. They made it work. They had areas that were fantastic, but that's one of the examples of, what's your prey base? What do you have? And that's also why they're not flying, especially Robert Longwings right now, is because the pattern of the ducks here have just gone. We just don't have the ducks like we used to. And so, what are you wanting to hunt? What do you have available as your prey base to hunt? Of course, we have squirrels in abundance. But kestrels are real popular right now. Mm-hmm. Kestrels are fantastic, and you can certainly fly a kestrel here, but you have to be aware. Man, Cooper's hawks can hide everywhere in trees in East Texas.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. Yeah. And so you definitely could be very successful. Alyssa had a kestrel for a little bit, not too long, but for just a little bit. And something, warned about, be careful. You never know what's hiding right behind that next tree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've and you might have heard me talk about already. I mean, I've almost had a kestrel eaten by a Cooper's hawk, and stuff. I mean, most people that really are very active almost on the daily, when they get a kestrel going, is going to have a coop encounter of some kind. It's inevitable. But yeah, well, I mean, is there pretty much any other species that you guys have wanted to fly at any particular point other than just, aside from the golden eagle,
the dream.
But I mean, has there been anything else other than the typical like red tails and Harrises?
I want to eventually do a coops. Just, I'm warmed off by it by a lot of falconers, but the challenge there that I just want to give it a try. And eventually I'll probably end up flying a coops for at least a season and just seeing how it goes and what all the hoopla is about and all the frustrations. But so the coops is on my list to eventually grab. But this week I'll be out trapping for a red tail.
Yeah.
I would like to at some point. Obviously, can't do it in East Texas. We don't have the prey for it. But I'd like to fly a goss because I've seen them in action. I've seen just how incredibly fast they are, and I feel like that would be a lot of fun, honestly, because it's high energy, high speed, and when I got to go out with a falconer, I'm blanking on his name right now. Sorry if you're listening and I'm talking about you. Sorry. And he let me kind of observe and watch, and that was so much fun that I feel like it would be fun to have one.
The goss on your fist for a little while and walk through the fields. This is at one of the meets, and
and he would hunt off the fist instead of from a T-perch or from a normal perch like red tails or Harrises do.
And they're incredibly fast.
Most goss guys, that's the reason why they like flying goss, is because they like that initial burst off the glove and stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, out of curiosity though, I have to ask, like, why do you think that you don't necessarily have granted, it goes back to the conversation of the best tool for the job and your perspective on things, but I mean, if you were flying like a bigger, like European, like a Finnish or something like that, I mean, you can technically hunt squirrels and things like with them. I mean, have you ever seen their feet up close, like some of those birds?
Some of them are big. The goss that I saw was not the size for squirrels. Granted, I'm not saying that you can't have a goshawk that is big enough for it. I feel like that speed is also just more. It comes to what I enjoy, and it's enjoyable to see him chase down a rabbit. Whereas in the tree, they can't exactly use that speed as often, and there's a lot of, tree in the way. So there's a lot of tree chop chasing.
Aerodynamic.
And you want a bird that's more likely to, like, maneuver around trees and crash through the brush to get to the squirrel than you do a bird that's going to try and chase something down.
So Goss are very maneuverable and can definitely put
That
on,
is true.
One of the big concerns in East Texas is the husbandry issues with Goss and
Yes.
Asper and
I do
concerns like that.
understand.
It's hot.
I mean, there is a reason why there's certain climates that seem like it's more, but the only thing I would have to say to that though is I know of plenty of guys that are able to keep them alive and well in really hot and humid climates and stuff too. Yeah. I mean,
I'd also like to fly pheasant with a Goss.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun. And we don't have those here.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there is. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have the game at all, for sure. I mean, the upland thing is its own thing for sure. Also,
we have plenty of rabbits here too. It's just the cover's so thick that it's really hard to get on. We've caught just a handful of rabbits in East Texas. We see them, but
get you a wiener dog.
Yeah, that's right. Get you little dots in nothing.
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah. No, I mean, so all I'm saying is there's. I've seen plenty of evidence that if you really wanted to fly a Goss in a place like this, especially if you had a dog that was flushing, especially out of the briar, you could probably do a rabbit and a squirrel combination pretty well with a bigger Goss. Just food for thought. I'm not saying, and I'm not sitting here telling you or trying to convince you that it's the best tool for the job for this area either. I mean, obviously, we could go on and on about of course you've got red tails, so why? And
the red tails aren't the flashiest thing out there, but they're kind of the Jeep of the falconry world. They're kind of go a lot of places you want them to and do just about most of what you ask of them.
Sure. Well,
maybe not flashy, but
and a Goss is a whole other different animal too, and a Goss is going to be probably significantly more expensive for you to procure as well.
Yeah.
Than just being able to drive down the road, drop a trap, and you get your red tail for some gas money.
That's right.
But no, I mean, like I said, I know of several guys right now that are especially flying some of the bigger Goss, the European species and things like that are having lots of fun squirrel chases and success and rabbits as well, and also running over wiener dogs right now too. Did I mention I like wiener dogs?
Yeah, you do.
Maybe a little.
But no, like I said, I won't harp on that too much longer. I'm just curious. I'm always curious to talk to falconers and see what they are thinking about and what their next steps are. And, sounds like you're at least thinking about it.
Well, when I think of falconry birds, I tend to forget that there are other species overseas. Mostly just because I work with red tails. That's just something I see everywhere. I'm not thinking about, a Cape falcon or an African pygmy falcon because we don't have those here, right? Those aren't things that so the idea of importing a goshawk from overseas never really occurred to me. If I'm gonna,
there's a little bit of a money factor involved.
There's a little bit of a money factor.
There's plenty of breeders though.
I'm a college student. I'm 21.
Yeah.
That's a little expensive.
Mom and Dad are willing to finance some of this, but not all this.
That's a little expensive. And so I enjoy being able to fly things that I can trap here. And that most of what I've heard from goshawks, and granted, I don't see them enough to know. Most of what I've heard about goshawks in North America is that they're not the biggest.
And we'd also we've talked about the idea, and it may happen. We may, after this season, say, we have captive bred Harrises. We may end up saying, let's go off and try wild trap. We'll make a trip down and trap, try to trap two wild Harrises and train them up. I think that'd be a neat thing to do too.
Yeah, it's on my list also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Passage Harris is the only type of Harris that I haven't flown yet as far as, like the type. And I've flown an imprint, and I've flown captive breds, I've flown second hands, I've not
second hands,
and like as I've mentioned many times before, it's on the list. Passage Harris is on the list at some point. I've heard nothing really for the most part but good things, and I'd like to have that experience sometime also. But so I get it.
I understand. Yeah.
But as far as I mean, start saving your pennies now. Just eat one less ramen noodle dinner.
That's right.
A day, and eventually.
How'd you know?
Maybe because I've been there.
Yeah, that's right.
It doesn't seem that long ago to me, but sometimes it does, I guess. But no, I mean, it's not a cheap investment to get a captive bred or a parent reared or a captive bred goshawk. But hey. Yeah, where there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You hear it all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's great, though. I mean, like I said, it sounds like you guys have an interesting initial introduction and background into all of this. And yeah, I mean, I guess now would be a good time though to have you guys discuss. I'm sure you probably have, being that you got into it at the same time and you have these unique perspectives, on getting into it. I mean, what are some of your favorite stories hunting together and things like that?
Well, we've had a great time hunting together and hunting with other people. Some very cool stories, but I think Alyssa's got one that she.
My favorite. I was hunting with Rodeo at the time, and my favorite story of hers when I had her is we're in Abilene at the time. We're on this piece of property from a friend of a friend that we got to hunt on. And to kind of lay the stage for you, we haven't seen much all day.
Nobody was catching rabbits.
No. And we'd seen like jacks off in the distance, but they're in the next county by the time you see them, right? They're gone. And so we kind of as a last ditch attempt, think there's something in the bushes in front of us, set Rodeo up on one of those tiny live oak trees over there. And I scare up a black-tailed jackrabbit. And I mean, it's almost like in slow motion. I can see it. This jack comes running right towards Rodeo. She kind of swoops around. And Danny Pickens has a fantastic series of photos that he caught right at the peak of the action because he was right there with his camera. Everything was perfect. She reaches onto the back of the jackrabbit, and it's like a rodeo. She rides it for a second and then reaches up with one foot, and you can see she reaches up, grabs it in the back of the head, and pulls it to the ground. And subdues the jackrabbit so it doesn't, bring her into the next county. And I mean, those set of photos, it was incredible. It's the first time we'd caught a jack. It hadn't even been really something I was expecting because they're so fast and they're so flighty that they don't tend to hunker down. But this one did, and we were able to flush it up, and she was able to literally wrangle it to the ground, and that was just absolutely fascinating and such a rewarding hunt to be a part of.
Yeah, Abilene for a couple of years, the first involved in Texas Hawk Association, was bad with rabbit production. Just very few people were catching rabbits, so that was kind of cool. And every year, Rodeo seemed to be one of a few birds in Abilene that was catching at least one rabbit during the trip. There's so many great stories. One of my favorite squirrel stories was out by myself, a quick hunt, and no dog, nobody with me. And in the matter of just over an hour, we put 4 squirrels in the bag, which is the most squirrels. I usually don't push her that hard. And, triples, sure, and doubles, plenty of doubles over the years. But I just kept going with the time I had available, and she caught 4, and that was phenomenal. One year we caught 5 cottontails in one day in Lubbock. We were in Lubbock, and so we caught 3 that morning and 2 in the afternoon, and that was a neat reward. But one of the coolest flights I ever saw with her was we were along this fence line, chain link fence line of this place in Lubbock, and she's way up high on an oak tree, and we kick a rabbit up, and this rabbit's got this long run down this dirt drive, and it's going to cut around the corner of the chain link fence to go to a hole area, and we knew we were there. And so Rodeo is just pumping hard, and you can see for 100 yards this rabbit running and Rodeo gaining. And as that rabbit cut the corner, she kicked her wing and dragged her right wing on the ground as she cut the corner as well and grabbed the rabbit. It was just the coolest flight. To see the entire thing and to see everything, just a phenomenal flight. So.
Nice. Yeah. So was that jackrabbit catch? Was that your first one? Or
yeah, that was the first one that I had ever caught. I don't think I've caught. I caught one more jackrabbit after that, I believe.
Yeah, but that was with Yuki.
But that was with my Kreider's red tail. Yeah. Rodeo is just a fantastic bird. Most of our stories are from Rodeo because she was just, oh my gosh, she was a machine. Incredible bird, incredible hunter, do pretty much anything you want her to do, except turkeys. I tried that just as a joke to see what she'd do. She leaned forward, hopped onto the fence, and then looked at me and looked at those turkeys and looked at me and then looked at the truck and decided she wasn't going to go after the turkeys because that's stupid. Why would you do that? Which is what I expected, but it was funny to see what she'd do.
Yeah, there's I've almost had a turkey one time. That actually the last secondhand Harris that I flew, she had this propensity, and I was telling my buddy that I was out with, I was just like, man, she's gonna go after those turkeys. And she was eyeing them. I mean, she was really. I just told him, I was just like, we might as well start heading over there because I know she's gonna go after it. And it wasn't 5 seconds after I finished the sentence, she sprung off the branch and started flying. I was like, dude, I told you.
Yeah.
I got over the fence as quick as I could. I was about 5 yards away, and she was on the back of one when I was about 5 yards away. And then she got bucked off right before I got to him. And then like one of the turkey's friends started trying to
Kicking at
give
her
her a piece of her mind and stuff too. So yeah, I mean, it's not exactly, unless they just headshot him and kill him instantly or something. It's not the best combination.
It was funny.
But
These were turkeys coming into a farmer's feeder in his front yard. And so they were used to seeing people, and we were about 50 yards away from them. But you could see her thinking about it. And she was a pretty smart bird. Wouldn't do something that was going to get her into trouble too much, usually.
No, and I knew she wasn't going to do it, but I still like wanted her to take a look because, there's that question of, well, maybe she could, get an easy shot at one if she wanted to. Yeah. And she looked at me and said no. And so
it was a fun time.
It was funny. Yeah, we had just gotten it was like the end of a hunt, and we were about to put her away or something.
We were getting ready to be done for the week, and just like, why not? Let's just see what happens.
Yeah. Sometimes it is fun watching the wheels turn in these birds,
in their brains. They're trying to think through it.
These hawks, like you can see the tiny wheels turning in their tiny little brains, and you're just like,
Yeah.
And it's always like, it seems like, of course, it's the experienced ones are the ones that you can see the wheels turning longer.
Yeah.
The immature birds, though, it's just like it turns about a half a spin and then they're like off.
Let's give it a try.
It's moving. It's alive. I should eat it.
Yeah.
Yep. But no, that's hilarious. Do you guys have anything else that you want to share before we come close to kind of wrapping this up or anything? Or
well, yeah. I mean, as a father, daughter, people out there thinking about the possibilities. Absolutely. Try to get your kids involved, and it's going to take more work on the part of the parent, on the father. When you got a young kid involved, there's just things that they don't know that an adult would know. And if you think it's possible, if they show an interest, then go ahead and encourage that interest to do whatever you can. The memories that we've had together have just been phenomenal. And a lot of our conversations are about falconry and about falconry trips and about falconry people and, doing falconry together. And it's just been a fantastic adventure.
Out of curiosity, how many spats did you end up getting into over the course of your years getting into this together?
Well, we've had a few disagreements, but nothing too bad.
No knockdown dragouts.
No,
nothing like that. No, it's been good.
Yeah, we tend to get along pretty well.
Yeah,
I think that probably one of the quote unquote worst arguments we had was over where to hunt that day.
Yeah.
And that was literally just I want to go here. Well, I want to go here.
No,
I want to go here. Okay, fine. Rock, paper, scissors. So that's. I mean, it's not been anything super bad. We've been pretty good.
We've kind of come into falconry at this interesting transition. There's a lot more younger people getting into falconry these days. At least that's what it seems, and a lot more younger women that are getting into falconry. And so Alyssa's been just a fantastic ambassador for the sport, talking with the young women. We've had a number of young men and women, teens that go out with us and kids, and she does a great job relating to them and talking with them and sharing falconry adventures and falconry life with them. And it's been cool for the sport.
Good deal. Well, I mean, you've already given some good advice and stuff, but I mean, I do want to get, a couple of both of you's, individual, just other piece of advice, and
Sure.
then we can probably go ahead and wrap this up and eat some tacos or something.
I don't know what we're doing. Yeah.
Well, my piece of advice, and this is bear with me here. It's not all doom and gloom, but you're gonna get hurt. Okay, that is something that there are a couple of things that can be guaranteed in falconry, and major injury is one of them. You are going to get grabbed by your bird, and it's gonna suck, and you're gonna say things you regret, and you're gonna make up words, right? And it's gonna hurt, and that's something that you're going to have to accept. I've been footed, I've been grabbed. I have plenty of scars from it. And essentially, it sucked. It doesn't feel good when, you are stabbed by your bird, but at the same time, it's nothing personal, except for maybe a Harris's hawk. But, those things are... But like most of the time, it's nothing personal. Your bird's reacting to movement. Your bird's reacting to something that they see and they want. You're going to get hurt though, and you're going to have to accept that and move on and have a plan for when that happens. You got to have an idea of how you're going to react. You need to know how to treat your bird afterwards, how you need to handle things. Essentially, what it is when you're grabbed by your bird, most of the time it's just an argument. That's one-sided. Your bird's angry at you and they're having an argument with you over something that you might not understand. And so being able to take that and say, yeah, that sucked, that hurt, but why? And then understand that as something that's very important, and being able to accept the fact that you're going to get hurt and you're going to have to just have this come to Jesus moment where you decide if it's something for you, if falconry is for you or not.
Yeah.
It's something that every single falconer will face. It's just a matter of time.
So, for me, I think probably the most important thing for us coming along is surround yourself with good falconer people. I mean, people that you can trust, that you can depend upon, that you can have these adventures with, that are there to kind of help guide you along the way. A lot of falconry tends to be solo, and a lot of older guys, of course, solo and not sharing much, and especially the older guys when things happened and regulations and came along and they had to start abiding by those things, tend to be a lot more solo loner kind of thing. But falconry is a great experience for not just good relationships, but just the memories that we've developed. And so surround yourself with good people. Go out, even if you're not a people person, that's okay. Get involved, show up at your local club events. Meet people, go out, see different things, new experiences. If you're typically flying one type of a bird, try to go hang out with falconers that are doing something different, and just look for those opportunities to have good relationships.
Perfect. Yeah. No, relationships are a lot of the reason why people continue to flourish, I think, in doing this. And no, that's great stuff. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Anybody that spends 5 minutes as a falconer, at some point, they're going to get footed.
Yeah.
I mean, at a minimum, and you hope eventually that the injuries that you accrue throughout your time don't stack up too much. If they are, then either you have the worst luck as an individual, or you're continuing to do things wrong. But yeah, I mean, there's always going to be those weird slip ups or occasions. It doesn't matter what it is, but yeah, eventually you're going to get grabbed, you're going to get footed or something or whatever. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You have to sit there and analyze, okay, how can that never happen again?
Yeah.
And then try your best to figure it out. And then when you figure it out, try not to make it ever happen again. That's one of the rules.
And if you're flying a bunch of different birds, it's more likely to happen than if you get one bird that you're stuck with, or that you stick with for a couple years. I know a lot of the squirrel hawkers, they like to catch a passage bird every year, and so you get some birds are not all the same. They're kind of like people. They're different personalities, and all kinds of weird stuff comes along occasionally.
For example, I had a bird. Short story. I had a bird that was scared of a specific type of hat.
Yeah.
Robert Carter was wearing that hat, and he kept flying away from Robert. He was fine with everybody until Robert came up. So weird quirks you got to learn with your bird, and weird just stuff. They're so different. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and that's part of the challenge of it, is just figuring out what those things are, and then adjusting life around them sometimes. Right. But no, this has been really fun though, and I appreciate you both for taking the time to do it though. And
thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been good.
And Alyssa, I wish you the best of luck in your continued endeavors. If you ever make it up to Alaska, send me a postcard, I guess.
Absolutely.
But no, this has been fun. I think now's a good time. We can go ahead and end this and go find some tacos or something.
All right.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, guys.